The grand hall of the Galactic Council sparkled with the light of 1,000 stars streaming through its crystal dome. High Commander Reed of the Stellar Dominion stood at the central podium, his silver uniform gleaming as he addressed the assembled representatives of 200 spacefaring species. For 50,000 years, Reed's voice boomed across the chamber. The Stellar Dominion has guided the development of space travel throughout the known galaxy. Our archives document our rise from a single world to the stars. We were the first to achieve faster-than-light travel, the first to establish colonies beyond our home system, and the first to create a true interstellar civilization. In the Earth section, Professor James Miller shifted uncomfortably in his seat. As Earth's leading archaeologist, he knew better than to speak up now, but his hand instinctively touched the data pad in his pocket. The human delegation sat quietly, their faces carefully neutral as Reed continued his speech. Today, we officially claim our rightful place as the First Empire, Reed declared, spreading his arms wide. Our historians have studied every corner of the galaxy. No civilization has older spacefaring records than ours. This is not merely a claim, it is historical fact. The assembled aliens erupted in applause. Some species buzzed their approval, others flashed bioluminescent patterns, and a few released pleasant scents into the air, their version of clapping. Only the human section remained still. Miller's data pad vibrated. He carefully pulled it out, shielding its screen from view. The message was marked urgent, sent from the Mars dig site. PRO the VSSOR, Melier, Voreik through Ju at Site 7. Carbon digging CONFIRMs. Structure GAT is back at 100,000 years. Human origin. CONFIRMed. Need you here, I'm MEDATLY. His hands trembled as he read the message again. They'd been excavating on Mars for decades, finding hints and traces of something bigger. But this changed everything. Reed was still speaking. As the First Empire, we will continue our sacred duty to guide younger species. Our technology will be shared, gradually, of course, with those who prove themselves worthy. Our wisdom will. Miller's data pad buzzed again. Additional. Found intact data storage system. Foreign affairs, office needs RESPONSE. Do we proceed with ANNOUNCEMENT? The professor looked up at Reed, who was now describing the Stellar Dominion's plans for the next 1,000 years. The High Commander's species had 4 eyes, all of them currently filled with pride as he detailed how they would guide the younger races to enlightenment. Miller typed back quickly, maintain CECURI, arriving within 24 hours. Fuval VERIFICATION, NEDEDBEFO or ANLIANLUNCEMENT. At the podium, Reed was reaching his conclusion. Let the historical records show that on this day, the Stellar Dominion took its rightful place as the acknowledged First Empire of space. Our 50,000 years of history stand as proof that no other civilization achieved what we have achieved, went where we have gone, or built what we have built. Miller thought about the structures they'd found buried deep in the Martian soil, about the strange alloys that seemed to defy modern analysis, about the symbols that matched patterns found in ancient Earth ruins, about the generations of humans who had looked up at the red planet, never knowing it held the secret of their species' true history. As the session ended and delegates began filing out, Admiral Thomas of the Earth Fleet leaned over to Miller. "Everything all right, Professor? You seem tense." Miller nodded slowly, choosing his words carefully. "Admiral, request permission to use a rapid transport to Mars." "Mars? But the Dominion celebrations will last all week. As Earth's representatives, we're expected to." "Sir," Miller interrupted, his voice barely a whisper, "I believe we found something that makes High Commander Reed's speech today rather premature." The Admiral's eyes widened slightly as he caught Miller's meaning. He tapped his command pad, and within seconds, Miller's transport was authorized. As Miller hurried out of the grand hall, Reed's voice still echoed in his mind. No civilization has older spacefaring records than ours. The professor allowed himself a small smile. How quickly the most cherished historical facts could change with a single discovery. He had a feeling the stellar dominion's moment of triumph was about to become a lot more complicated. The red dust of Mars swirled around Professor Miller as he stepped out of the transport ship. The excavation site spread out before him, bright lights cutting through the planet's eternal dusk. Dozens of researchers in environmental suits moved purposefully between gleaming equipment and carefully marked dig zones. Dr. Roberts, the site supervisor, rushed to meet him. "Professor, you need to see this immediately." Her voice crackled through the suit's communication system. She led him to a newly uncovered entrance that plunged deep into the Martian soil. "We found it 3 days ago," she explained as they descended through reinforced tunnels. "At first we thought it was another small outpost, but—" She paused, letting Miller take in the sight before them. The tunnel opened into a vast chamber that stretched beyond their light's reach. The walls were perfectly smooth, covered in flowing patterns that seemed to capture and reflect their lights. But it was the technology that made Miller's breath catch in his throat. Consoles lined the walls, their surfaces untouched by 100,000 years of time. Holographic displays flickered weakly to life as they passed, responding to their presence. At the center of the chamber stood a massive pillar of light, shifting colors dancing within its transparent casing. "Is that what I think it is?" Miller asked, his voice barely a whisper. Roberts nodded. "A quantum computer, still functioning. The power source. Professor, it's unlike anything we've ever seen. It's been running for 100,000 years, and as far as we can tell, it could run for 100,000 more." They approached one of the consoles. The symbols on its surface were hauntingly familiar, identical to those found in Earth's oldest ruins. But here they were clear, unchanged by time and weather. "Watch this," Roberts said, pressing her hand against the console's surface. The entire chamber hummed to life. Holographic displays filled the air around them, showing star maps, technical diagrams, and strings of ancient human writing. "We've only translated a fraction of it," she continued, "but what we found—" She gestured to a particular display. "This shows faster-than-light travel technology. The principles are so advanced that our best scientists are struggling to understand them. And the date stamp on these files." She pointed to a series of symbols. "It's from 100,000 years ago. That's 50,000 years before the stellar dominion claims to have invented space travel." Miller studied the displays, his archaeological training helping him piece together the story they told. These aren't just technical documents, he realized. This is a library, a record of everything humanity achieved before. Before they disappeared, Roberts finished. "But why? How could we have forgotten all of this?" A soft chime echoed through the chamber. One of the larger displays changed, showing a new set of data. "Professor," one of the younger researchers called out, "you need to see this. We just finished processing the stellar navigation data. These aren't just star maps. They're colonial records." The display showed hundreds of worlds, all marked with the same ancient human symbols. Colony worlds, research stations, military outposts, mining operations, an empire that stretched across thousands of light years. "This changes everything," Miller said, his mind racing. "The stellar dominion's entire claim to being the first empire is wrong," Roberts said firmly. "Humanity reached the stars long before them. We had an empire that makes theirs look tiny in comparison. The question is, what do we do with this information?" Miller stared at the ancient displays, thinking of High Commander Reed's proud speech just hours ago. "We need to be careful," he said finally. "The Dominion won't take this lightly. We need to understand everything we can about this facility first. What it was for, why it was built here, and most importantly, why our ancestors stepped back from all this power." As if in response to his words, the central pillar pulsed with bright blue light. New displays appeared, showing what looked like defense systems, weapons platforms, and something labeled in the ancient text as the Guardian Network. "Professor," Roberts said slowly, "I think this facility is more than just a library. I think it's waking up." The chamber hummed with increasing power, and somewhere deep below them, ancient machinery began to move. The Galactic Council chamber felt different today. The usual peaceful atmosphere had been replaced by tense whispers and nervous glances. At the center of the room, a holographic display showed the Mars facility in perfect detail, rotating slowly for all to see. High Commander Reed stood rigid, his 4 eyes fixed on Professor Miller. "You expect us to believe," he said slowly, "that humans built this structure before our civilization even existed?" "The evidence is clear," Miller replied, his voice steady. He gestured to the hologram, and it changed to show the carbon dating results. "Our facility is twice as old as the entire stellar dominion. But if you doubt our findings, you're welcome to send your own scientific team." Reed's facial scales darkened, a sign of anger in his species. "We will do exactly that. The Dominion's best scientists will prove these claims false." The Earth delegation had prepared for this moment. Admiral Thomas stepped forward. "We've already prepared quarters for your team at the Mars facility. They can begin their investigation immediately." As Reed appointed his science team, Miller watched the other alien representatives. Many seemed fascinated rather than threatened. The representative from the water worlds was literally rippling with excitement, their liquid form unable to contain their interest. 3 days later, Miller stood with Reed's science team inside the Mars facility. The Dominion scientists moved through the chamber, their advanced scanning equipment humming as they studied every surface. "Impossible," the lead scientist, Dr. Vex, muttered. She turned to Reed, who had insisted on overseeing the investigation personally. "High Commander, these readings, they're genuine. The technology here, it's beyond even our current capabilities." Before Reed could respond, the facility's systems suddenly activated. The central pillar glowed brighter than ever before, and new holographic displays filled the air. But this time, they showed something different. A figure appeared, a human from the ancient past, dressed in simple but elegant clothing. When it spoke, the facility's systems automatically translated into every known language. "Greetings, descendants and friends from the stars. If you're seeing this message, then humanity has once again reached into space, and other civilizations have joined us among the stars." The chamber fell silent. Even Reed seemed transfixed. "We were the first empire, yes," the hologram continued, "but that title brought us no joy. We spread across 3,000 worlds. We built wonders that touched the hearts of stars. We learned to reshape planets and harness the power of black holes. But we also learned the price of too much power too quickly." The hologram changed, showing scenes of ancient human ships and cities among the stars. The technology displayed made even the Dominion scientists gasp in awe. "We chose to step back," the figure explained. "Not because we failed, but because we succeeded too well. We decided to give the galaxy time to grow on its own, to let new civilizations rise naturally, without our shadow over them. We sealed our most powerful technologies, leaving only scattered clues that would be found when humanity was ready." Reed's scales had paled to a light gray. The evidence was undeniable now. His empire, his claim to history, had been built on an incomplete understanding of the past. The hologram smiled gently. "This facility is not a weapon or a tool of power. It is a gift, not just to our descendants, but to all species who have learned to reach for the stars. Inside these databases is the combined knowledge of humanity's first journey to the stars, freely given to those who are ready to use it wisely." Miller watched as Reed's expression changed from shock to something more complex. The High Commander stepped forward, looking first at the hologram, then at Miller. "Professor," Reed said quietly, "it seems we have much to learn. Not just about technology, but about wisdom." He paused, then added, "Perhaps Perhaps being first is not as important as what you choose to do with that position. The hologram continued its message, but Miller was watching the faces around him. He saw the moment when competition gave way to wonder, when the need to be first was replaced by the excitement of discovery. The revelation of humanity's past was changing the present in ways he hadn't expected. And somewhere, he suspected, their ancient ancestors were smiling. Not everyone accepted change peacefully. 2 weeks after the revelation at the Mars facility, Professor Miller stared at his data screen in horror. Another archaeological site, this time on Europa, had been destroyed in an unexpected mining accident. The third such accident this month. "This isn't a coincidence," Admiral Thomas said, pacing in Miller's office at the Mars facility. "First the site in the asteroid belt, then the ruins on Luna, and now Europa. Someone's trying to erase the evidence." Miller pulled up a secure channel to Dr. Roberts, who was now leading a team at a dig site on Venus. Her face appeared, covered in sweat despite the environmental controls. "Professor, we've got trouble. 3 unmarked ships just entered Venus orbit. They're not responding to hails." Before Miller could respond, alarms blared throughout the Mars facility. Red lights flashed as ancient systems hummed to life. The central computer's voice echoed through the corridors. "Warning. Defense network detecting unauthorized military vessels approaching Mars. Activation protocols initiated." Through the facility's windows, Miller watched in amazement as the Martian surface shifted. Hidden panels opened in the red soil, revealing long-dormant defense platforms. They rose smoothly on anti-gravity fields, their ancient weapons charging with a blue glow that lit up the Martian night. "By the stars," Admiral Thomas whispered, "the whole planet is armed." Miller's console beeped. New data flowed across his screen, coordinates appearing one after another. These are locations, he realized. Other facilities, other colonies. They're all activating. The whole solar system is waking up. On the main display, they could see a fleet of ships approaching Mars. They bore no official markings, but their design was unmistakably Dominion. "Incoming transmission," the facility's computer announced. High Commander Reed's face appeared on the screen, but something was different. His scales were darker than usual, his expression strained. "Professor Miller," Reed said, "I'm contacting you unofficially. The ships approaching Mars are extremists, hardliners within the Dominion who cannot accept the truth. I cannot officially intervene, but I felt you should be warned." The transmission cut off. Miller looked at Admiral Thomas. "They're going to try to destroy this facility too." "They can try," Thomas said grimly, watching the defense platforms. "But I don't think our ancestors left us defenseless." The approaching ships launched their first attack. Energy beams lanced toward the facility, only to splash harmlessly against an invisible barrier. The ancient defense platforms responded, not with destructive force, but with precise, disabling shots. One by one, the attacking ships lost power, drifting helplessly in Mars orbit. Multiple activations detected, the facility's computer reported. Luna Base online, Europa Station online, Venus Archive online, connecting to Guardian Network. New holograms filled the chamber, showing a vast web of ancient human outposts and facilities across the solar system. Each point of light represented a rediscovered piece of humanity's past, now awakening from its long slumber. "Professor," Dr. Roberts' voice was excited despite the crisis. "The Venus site, it's not just ruins. It's powering up. Some kind of massive database. It's transmitting data about everything. Our whole history. No one can erase this now. It's being broadcast to every corner of the galaxy." Miller watched as more ships arrived, but these bore the official marks of the Galactic Council. The extremists' attempt to hide the truth had failed. Instead, they had triggered the very thing they feared most, the full awakening of humanity's ancient legacy. "The attack was a mistake," Miller said quietly. "Our ancestors didn't just leave us weapons. They left us knowledge. And now it's protected not just by defense systems, but by the truth itself. You can't bomb the truth out of existence. As if in response, the facility hummed with new energy. More systems activated, more secrets revealed themselves. But these weren't weapons or tools of war. They were libraries, laboratories, and archives. The true power that humanity's ancestors had chosen to preserve. The crisis had forced their hand, but perhaps that wasn't a bad thing. The time for hiding the past was over. The time for sharing it had begun. The discovery changed everything. 3 months after the failed attack on Mars, Professor Miller stood in a newly uncovered chamber on a distant world called Kepler 186f. This was the 47th ancient human colony they had found, and each discovery told them more about their ancestors' incredible achievements. "Look at this," Dr. Roberts said, pointing to a wall covered in flowing script. Unlike the military facilities on Mars, this was clearly a research station. They were studying dark energy here. The theories are, they're beautiful, simple, but perfect. Miller touched the wall gently. The surface came alive under his fingers, projecting complex equations into the air. But something else caught his attention. A personal log entry, still preserved after all this time. The holographic image showed a woman in simple clothing, her eyes bright with purpose. "Final entry," she said. "Today we finish our work here. The choice has been made. Humanity has reached too far, too fast. We have the power to reshape galaxies, but do we have the wisdom to use it well?" More holograms activated around them, showing scenes from the ancient human empire. Ships that could cross the galaxy in days. Cities that floated among the stars. Machines that could terraform planets in months instead of centuries. "Our achievements are beyond counting," the recording continued. "But we see the younger species emerging among the stars. They deserve their chance to grow, to learn, to find their own path without us shaping everything in our image." In another part of the facility, a team of scientists, both human and alien, studied an ancient device. It was smaller than a coffee cup, but contained more computing power than all of modern Earth's computers combined. The ancient humans, one of the alien scientists said with wonder, they didn't just have advanced technology. They understood things we're only beginning to grasp. But why hide it all? The answer came from another log entry, this one from what appeared to be a high-ranking official of the ancient empire. "We could rule the galaxy," the figure said. "We could make every decision, solve every problem, end every conflict. And in doing so, we would rob the universe of something precious. The chance for each species to find its own answers." Miller watched as more teams arrived through the station's still-functioning transport system. Representatives from dozens of species, all working together to understand the legacy humanity had left behind. "Professor," one of his assistants called out, "we found something in the central database. It's the reason." The real reason they stepped back. The main hall's holographic system activated, showing a vast map of the galaxy. Points of light marked the locations of ancient human worlds. But there were other lights too, dim ones, scattered across space. "Life," the computer explained. "Primitive at the time, but developing. Thousands of species, each with the potential to reach the stars. Our studies showed that our presence was affecting their development. Some tried to copy us without understanding. Others gave up their own paths to follow ours. A few even destroyed themselves trying to match our achievements before they were ready." Miller understood now. Humanity's ancestors hadn't retreated out of fear or failure. They had stepped back out of compassion, out of wisdom. They had chosen to become gardeners instead of rulers, letting each species grow in its own way. "But they left us these facilities," Dr. Roberts said, "these libraries and tools. Why?" Another hologram activated, showing an elderly man in what looked like a garden among the stars. "To our descendants," he said warmly, "if you're seeing this, you've found your way back to the stars. You've grown, learned, and most importantly, you've met others who shared that journey. Now you can understand why we made our choice. The galaxy doesn't need rulers. It needs friends, partners, equals. Use what we left you wisely. Share it freely. And remember, being first means nothing. Being kind means everything. As the message ended, Miller looked around the chamber. Humans and aliens working side by side, learning together, sharing discoveries. Perhaps this, more than any technology, was the real legacy their ancestors had hoped for. The peace didn't last. Despite the beauty of humanity's ancient message, some refused to accept change. High Commander Reed's transmission reached Earth in the middle of the night. They've taken control. Reed's hologram flickered as he spoke urgently. The military hardliners. They've seized power in the Dominion. They're coming, not just for the Mars facility now, but for everything. They say they're preserving galactic stability, but they want to destroy all evidence of the ancient human empire. Miller watched from the Mars facility's control center as the largest fleet he'd ever seen emerged from faster-than-light travel. 500 Dominion warships, their weapons charged, surrounded Earth, Mars, and the other planets where ancient facilities had been found. This is Marshal Grant of the True Dominion. A new voice boomed through all channels. Your discoveries threaten the stability of our civilization. We cannot allow these facilities to remain active. Shut them down and surrender them to our control, or we will take them by force. Admiral Thomas stood beside Miller, his face grim. We've got ships coming to help from other species, but they won't arrive in time. Earth's fleet is outnumbered 20-1. The facility's central pillar pulsed with bright light. The ancient computer spoke. Hostile fleet detected. Guardian Network defense protocols activating. All facilities linked. Across the solar system, ancient defense platforms rose from their long slumber. Not just the ones they'd found. Hundreds more, hidden beneath the surfaces of planets, moons, and asteroids. A web of energy connected them, forming a protective network around the entire solar system. This is Professor James Miller. Miller responded to the Dominion fleet. Our ancestors left these facilities as a gift for all species. We won't let you destroy them. Please, stand down. Don't force us to use technology we barely understand. You dare threaten the Dominion? Marshal Grant laughed. Your ancestors may have been powerful, but you are not them. You don't even know how to use their weapons. Open fire. Energy beams from 500 ships struck the Guardian Network's shield. The barrier flickered and held. The ancient computer spoke again. Attack detected. Non-lethal countermeasures engage. Beams of soft blue light reached out from the defense platforms. Where they touched the Dominion ships, systems simply stopped working. Weapons powered down. Engines fell silent. Ship after ship drifted helplessly in space. Impossible. Marshal Grant's voice shook. Our shields, they're not even trying to stop it. What is this technology? Protection protocols. The ancient computer explained to everyone listening. Designed to defend without destroying. To protect without harming. The network doesn't recognize enemies. Only friends who haven't understood yet. More ships arrived. Vessels from 20 different species, led by the ships of those who had supported Earth's revelation of its past. They surrounded the disabled Dominion fleet, not to attack, but to help. Marshal Grant, Miller said quietly, look around you. Look at what our ancestors chose to build. Not ultimate weapons, but ultimate protections. Not tools of conquest, but tools of peace. They could have built weapons that would vaporize your fleet. Instead, they built defenses that protect without killing. Through the facility's windows, Miller watched as the disabled Dominion ships were guided safely to harbor by ships from other species. The Guardian Network's blue light continued to pulse softly, a reminder not of humanity's power, but of their ancestors' wisdom. The True Dominion is finished. Reed's voice came through again, stronger now. The attempt to seize power has failed. Marshal Grant and his followers will face justice. But more importantly, Reed paused. We have all learned something today about true strength. The ancient computer added one final message. Guardian Network standing down. Defense protocols successful. 0 casualties. 0 deaths, 0 destruction, operating as designed. Miller smiled. In the end, their ancestors' greatest weapon hadn't been their technology. It had been their choice of how to use it. The confrontation was over, won not through superior firepower, but through superior wisdom. The time of secrets was ending. The time of sharing was about to begin. 1 year after the Dominion fleet's failed attack, the Mars facility had changed. What was once a quiet archaeological site had become the galaxy's greatest center of learning. Representatives from hundreds of species walked its halls, sharing knowledge and studying the ancient human's legacy. Professor Miller stood in the central chamber, watching a group of young aliens examining the quantum computer. Among them were even some Dominion students, their scales bright with excitement as they learned alongside humans and other species. "Professor," Dr. Roberts called from her new position at the main console. "The Venus Archive just finished translating another database. You're going to want to see this." The holographic display came to life, showing a message left by the ancient humans. But this was different from the others they'd found. This was their final message, meant specifically for this moment. The image showed a group of ancient humans standing in a room much like this one. Their leader stepped forward, speaking directly to the future. "To those who found our legacy, if you're seeing this message, then everything has worked as we hoped. You've not only discovered our past, but have chosen to share it. This was the final test we left behind." The room fell silent as aliens and humans alike gathered to listen. Even High Commander Reed, now serving as the Dominion's ambassador to Earth, stood quietly among them. "We could have left weapons powerful enough to conquer galaxies," the ancient human continued. "We could have left ships that could cross universes. We could have left tools to reshape reality itself. Instead, we left you something far more valuable, the chance to grow together." The hologram changed, showing scenes from the past year. Humans and aliens working side by side in the facilities, sharing discoveries, learning from each other. The ancient technology had recorded everything. "Look at what you've achieved in just 1 year," the message continued. 50 new medical breakthroughs using our old research, 30 environmental restoration projects using our terraforming data, 100 diplomatic treaties signed in these halls. You've taken what we left and used it exactly as we hoped, not to dominate, but to help, not to rule, but to serve. Miller felt a warmth in his chest as he watched the faces around him. Former enemies now stood as friends. Species that once competed now collaborated. The Dominion's pride had been replaced by curiosity, their desire to rule transformed into a desire to learn. "And so," the ancient human said, smiling, "we can share our final gift. Throughout our facilities across the galaxy, we left pieces of our greatest achievements. Apart, they are wonderful. Together," the hologram paused, eyes twinkling. "Together, they will show you the path to the stars themselves." New data flowed across the screens. Star maps expanded, showing not just the galaxy, but others beyond it. The quantum computer hummed as it processed information that had waited 100,000 years to be revealed. "Professor," one of the alien scientists called out, her eyes wide. "These calculations, they're showing us how to reach other galaxies. Not in years or decades, but in days. They've given us the keys to the universe itself." But only now, Miller understood, only when we proved we could use it wisely. The final message played. "This is not the end of your journey. It's the beginning. We stepped back so you could step forward. We hid our power so you could find your wisdom. And now, together, you can go further than we ever did. Not as conquerors, not as rulers, but as explorers and friends." As the message faded, Miller looked around the chamber. Humans and aliens stood together, not as separate species, but as fellow travelers on an endless journey. Their ancestors hadn't just left them technology. They had left them a purpose. High Commander Reed stepped forward, his scales shimmering with emotion. "Professor Miller," he said quietly, "shall we begin?" Miller nodded, touching the console that would unlock humanity's final gift. Together, he said, and aliens and humans alike echoed the word. The stars were waiting, and this time, no one would journey to them alone.